People still believe the government is lying about aliens? Well, I can clear that right up. After all, I served the United States Air Force. I was in the National Security Agency. Heck, I worked for the Office of Secretary of Defense. I worked in signals intelligence and human intelligence. So I definitely know better, but wait, I'm also on YouTube where sellers of bootleg supplements are medical experts and movie reviews are done by grown men standing in front of their childhood toys.
Denver? Hey, Denver. Whoa, hey, over here. Hey. Well, I guess it's just us, and you are watching and listening to The Mighty Peculiar.
Hi, this is Denver Riggleman. We're going to be talking about UFOs, unidentified, fabulous objects, because we all know the song remains the same. Doesn't it, Matt Anderson?
It does. There's no changes to anything here, especially there's no change from last week when we need you to like the episode, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and if you don't do it, and this is serious, like if you don't do this, we're going to have our Graylian friends leave a mutilated cattle carcass in your bed, Godfather style.
Ooh.
We can do it. And I guess in the less threatening the audience tone, we're also a podcast that you can just listen to and not have to look at us if you don't want to. It's everywhere that you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple. I'm sure there's other ones, but, just look for it. Just search The Mighty Peculiar. And, hang on. One more bit of business up top. Hi, Kathy, Doug's mom. I'm really glad you like the show. I'm glad that you like the way I tell stories. I'm glad that you love watching Denver react to learning new things. So thank you for watching, Doug's mom.
And Doug's mom is going to get a signed book because of that. All right, Matt, what are we doing, brother? So today I know that down to business, UFOs, UAPs, brother. What do we got? I'm ready.
Okay, so I want to do something quick that I was hesitant to actually do, which was talk about Roswell. Because Roswell, to me, before I really kind of started thinking about it, it felt like the one that, you see other shows cover it, and it's like 8 episodes. It's so in-depth. There's just so many layers and so much to it. So I didn't want to touch it until, Denver, you and I were talking the other day, and I just kind of rattled off like from what I remembered about the actual timeline. And it was like, oh, wait, this is like the most basic, simple, and overrated story. So Mighty Peculiar is now going to knock Roswell out in just a couple minutes, and we're just going to move on from it. So
it's rock and roll. I'm ready for this.
So let's start June 26, 1947. Now, we're not actually starting in Roswell. We are starting with a man named Kenneth Arnold. Anyone that has learned about UFOs will know that name. He essentially is the one that coins flying saucer, puts it in the vernacular. Although wasn't he the one who also called them like cigar shape, which that I never reconciled why they were cigar shape and saucer shape, because those are 2 different shapes, right?
Well, it could be. It depends on how you use them, I guess. And what's really weird? What's also really weird, what was coming back is every time that he would actually try to report it, the actual ground controller, right, he would say, "What's the frequency, Kenneth?"
Okay, June 26, 1947. Suddenly, flying saucers are like the talk of the nation, basically. Now, we're going to go a couple days later. So the exact date here is unknown, but it's either like the last day of June or the first day of July. So we're talking within 5 days. Okay, we now are going to be in a place called Corona, New Mexico, where we're going to meet our buddy Mac. It's a W.W. Mac Brazel, I think, but Mac. He's a farmer, a rancher. He's walking his property and he sees some debris. And And he thinks it's so insane that he kind of piles it with brush that he's going to get rid of.
So he wasn't that impressed initially, is what you're saying. Got it. Okay.
Something important to know about something to know about Mac. He has no phone, no radio. Okay. So now we're July 5th. Okay. Mac goes to town for his weekly errands. He goes into downtown Corona, New Mexico.
Can I say something really quick? The story's amazing. Yep. July 5th. So we're on the anniversary right now. This podcast, this YouTube show is on the anniversary of this actual July 5th finding.
That is very true. July 5th, 1947, Mac Goes to Town, which is a great movie. Mac Goes to Town. And while in town, he hears about flying saucers. And then he goes home and it's still not that interesting to him because it waits until July 7th, so 2 more days. Then he goes, maybe that stuff I found, a week ago that was unremarkable and I put under brush that I'm either going to burn or get rid of, maybe that has something to do with this flying saucer business. So he gathers it up, and on July 7th, he takes it to Roswell, New Mexico, the neighboring town, to the sheriff's department. And shows it to him. And it's
wait a minute. He takes it to Roswell.
He takes it to Roswell. I'm glad you picked up on that because he lives in Corona. He goes to Roswell with the debris that he collected from the crash site. And for those just listening, I did air quotes on crash site. We'll get to that.
So actually this debris was in Corona, not in Roswell.
Exactly. It was Corona based. I was trying to think of come up with an airborne thing. I didn't because this is not about airborne. Corona. This is about things that crash. These are things that are no longer airborne.
It's an alien virus from Corona. It's the coronavirus. I think we are now into another conspiracy theory. I mean, so what you're telling me, buddy, is how many days from the time that he saw the debris until he actually reported it? By the way, it was suggested to him. So you're talking a week and a half?
At least 7, as many as about 9 to 10. Because obviously it was so unremarkable when he found the debris, he didn't note the exact date. So we know it was after June 26th because that's when Kenneth Arnold, but before July 5th when Mac finally learned about flying saucers. So he takes it to the sheriff in Roswell. The sheriff looks at it and Mac basically says, hey, maybe this is some pieces of the stuff that you've been talking about, the flying saucers. So the sheriff calls the Army, which there's the nearby base. And they go, okay, we'll come get the stuff. But they're not coming until the next day, till the 8th, right?
So they're really not that. Oh, hold on a second. Hold on. So, Matt, I think that's very important. Yeah. So you're talking about they thought it was so unimportant that they just went ahead and scheduled it for the next day. Think about that. Right. As a military guy who's been in the military business, and if I think that there's something actually out there, my guess is I wouldn't say, hey, man, don't worry, have some breakfast. We'll see you tomorrow mid-afternoon.
Yeah,
pretty interesting. I like that.
While you're out and about, if you could also swing by and pick up maybe flying saucer debris that I thought was so unbelievable, unspectacular that I wasn't even going to show anyone. Okay,
this is great.
Now here's where basically the legend of Roswell is born, and it's because there was a spokesperson for the Army that just couldn't wait to break news that he didn't know was news. So the spokesperson for the Army is the one who is responsible for the eventual headline that says RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. So even the headline doesn't quite say that, it's Roswell. So, what's even funnier is there was a local radio DJ in the Roswell area that saw this report come kind of over the wire and basically said to the spokesperson, you are going to regret this. Because what is key is this is still the 7th and the newspaper now comes out on the 8th. The Army has not even gotten the remnants of this stuff yet. So this spokesman is already putting out the release saying flying saucer.
Sounds like a whistleblower.
He sounds like a whistleblower who
sounds like a public relations troop who got over his skis and wasn't quite sure what to do, so he thought flying saucer would be funny. And and it's just that suggested bullshit, that we deal with all the time. But go ahead. I think this is fascinating.
Okay. So basically now where the whole conspiracy comes, the whole idea of a cover-up comes because the newspaper comes out on the 8th. That day, the Army gets the remnants, takes it back to the base, looks at it, and is basically like, yeah, we know exactly what this is. So on the 9th is the retraction, the infamous, like, it was a weather balloon, and now we've launched, like, every conspiracy theory about UFOs, because now it's a cover-up. They accidentally told the truth, and now they're backpedaling. How many times have we heard stuff like that? The problem is, they didn't accidentally tell the truth the first time. They actually incidentally lied the first time. That's really the issue here. That wasn't accidentally telling the truth and then backpedaling. It was like an untruth got out first, and then they had to catch up with the truth.
It was a military goofball with diarrhea of the mouth. That was it.
Exactly.
Right. And based on some unimportant debris that was found in Corona, so it's actually not the Roswell incident; it's the Corona incident. And it said even the Roswell area that was trucked to Roswell a week to a week and a half after, because the original individual, Mac, didn't think it was all that important. So it was really about the power of suggestion.
Right.
That's what we have.
What I think is the most interesting part here is to kind of pick up from once that retraction hit, the weather balloon stuff is now infamous as like the lamest cover up, right? That became the joke in the movie Men in Black. Like, weather balloon, that's like the best you could come up with. But the thing is, it worked at the time, because guess what? The next mention of Roswell even being like a thing that needs to be paid attention to by anyone was not until 1978. Which means, of course, people were like, yeah, there's nothing to, okay, I understand the story, whatever. So it was forgotten until I think it was Stanton Friedman, which is a name that, will make people's eyes roll as soon as.
It makes mine roll, but go ahead. Yep. Yes, I love it.
He found a guy, Jesse Marcel, who had been at the crash site, one of the people that had kind of handled the material, and basically said, like, and Jesse Marcel initially says, yeah, there was some kind of cover up, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But that's Roswell. It was not Roswell. It was Corona. It was never unidentified, the coronavirus. Right. But just because we are very thorough here on the Mighty Peculiar, look, I believe, and let's see if he's there. I believe we have someone on the scene in Roswell.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Doug, how is it going?
Great. I have to say, hey, Denver. Hi.
Hey,
it
buddy.
turns out there's nothing here. It's just a gift shop. The feeling in the town is very jovial, kind of like a hotel that charges by the hour.
Does it have beds?
I've been to those.
In?
It feels like it might. Yes, it feels.
Are the rooms alien themed? Oh, that's fantastic! But you're in the wrong town, Doug. You're in the wrong town. Shouldn't you be in Corona?
I would. Marketing told me Roswell.
We've all said it was the Roswell crash. I
only have 2 more bus tickets.
Yeah,
it's almost to me like we're all confused by this, because really there's nothing in Roswell, because there was never anything in Roswell. Am I right, Doug? Is that what you're thinking out there?
That's what it feels like, but I feel so stupid now.
Well, but at least you don't look stupid.
No, you don't look stupid.
Thank you.
For those just listening, Doug is like he went to Roswell for us. He went to the wrong place to look into the non-crash that was not a crash in another place. It's amazing.
And I did.
But Doug, I got to tell you, going all the way up to Roswell, I'm just absolutely completely impressed. That is unbelievable.
I'm really glad to hear that, but I have to catch a Greyhound. I got another stop to get to. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Right. We'll talk to you later, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you.
So
that hat. I think the hat really set it off. I think the hat really set it off. That was wonderful.
He needs press, like a little press card, he does
a little press card. The thing is, his jacket was snazzy as hell. Yeah, and I like the tie. The top button undone, like he just got from an alien party. I wasn't quite sure if they doing some kind of twister with the grays. It was fantastic.
Right. Well, he did show up there on Probe Weekend. What we're going to talk about from this point forward really is what has come from not just Roswell, but the flying saucers, Kenneth Arnold sighting, and kind of what is going to intervene over the next couple years in investigations and stuff. That, as Denver, you've said, is basically, we're kind of living it again in 2023.
This feels like a military nothing burger. I mean, that's honestly what you just went through. I know that people, I think, want excitement in their lives. I get it. They want to be sort of actors in their own movies, and that's fantastic. But to me, it just sounds like a military nothing burger with an R&D, a research and development project gone bad, where the public relation guy got over his skis, right. And we had an individual who thought it wasn't important until he heard it might be important. So he reported it. That's it. That's the story, guys.
And I guess one thing we can add to off of what you just said is, if you really want to look at it this way, there was a crash, right, in Corona. Now, the crash was at the time said to be a weather balloon, but that was technically kind of a cover up, because we will learn in 1994 when the Air Force declassifies that this was actually part of something called Project Mogul, which I think you said you kind of know, Well, yeah, you learn. I mean, Project Mogul, we've read this, we've known about it. And, the issue that you have, people are like, well, it was so long, where there's a lot of things that are so classified based on sources and methods, where you might have information that's kept secret for 50 years or more, between 50 or 75 years. So this really isn't a surprise to me either. And it's interesting. Of course, we're not going to let people know that we had an R&D, a research and development project during the Cold War, the beginning of the Cold War, right? We're not going to say what actually crashed or what failed. That would be ridiculous. That's a compartment. That's a classification compartment. And you don't want the public to know or the press to know, because our enemies might know. Yes. And the thing is, like, this was a balloon, right? Like, so even the cover up is very minor. It was just the kind of balloon it was meant for early detection of, I think, nuclear weapons
armaments
or something. Yes.
Or radiation.
So it was a defensive, experiment, essentially. So there was a crash, there was a cover up, but it's nothing like what it was made. And that, I think, is the perfect segue, right, to kind of our theme in talking about this stuff, is the expectations of UFO enthusiasts versus the reality of what was actually happening, right? Because we're going to now enter this period where we get a lot of official panels, investigations via the government that UFO enthusiasts love to use as citing as how we used to take this so seriously, and now we don't because something cover up, something whatever. And even then, we're going to now, as we talk about it, we're going to see, I think their expectations were just very much off right from the start. They were not, they were misguided in what they were expecting. So,
well, and, we can look at the public relations officer, but I think too, if I'm to look at this, the media is sort of complicit in this, with confirming sources, confirming motivations, confirming even how they report that. Right now, there's obviously going to be a retraction because individuals got over their skis and said just something stupid, but that did cause this ripple effect of conspiracies and theories we see today. And, what's interesting, when I look at, 1947, when I look at Roswell, I've told you, it reminds me of the 1958 Bigfoot, prints that were found. And we find out later that they were faked by Ray Wallace. And I've always told people, I thought 1958 was there's a direct link to 1967. Which is the Patterson-Gimlin film, the most famous film that people remember that, right? Of Patty, right? A female Bigfoot, walking down just caught on film by Bob and Roger, right? And, and a lot of people also know I've interviewed Bob Gimlin. I know Bob Gimlin, right? Yeah. And, and talking, I have probably more knowledge about this from the believer side than about anybody on Earth. So it is interesting to me that when you look at 1958 and Bigfoot, it seems like that's when the explosion started towards really Bigfoot belief systems and all of its iterations today.
Right.
It just seems like 1947 to me was a genesis for maybe some of the UFO and UAP things we see today.
But that the 5 years represented from June 26th of 1947 to basically July 19th or 20th of 1952 is
a 5 year period.
It's this 5 year period that is basically, you could almost freeze that time in amber and Jurassic Park it to today, and we're having the same discussion. And that's where where we want to talk about like the history, but then like Denver is going to unleash a little. I don't know. Let's say he's got some thoughts about it now, and I just want to say, like, while I'm kind of giving some history, I'm encouraging Denver to jump in and talk about some of the current stuff too.
Well,
where he finds the parallels.
Again, it's always fantastic when you break down facts, right, from fantasy. And I think, Matt, that's what you're so adept at doing as you're going through this and actually looking at validated source material. Right. I want to say that to people, right? We're not actually doing this show using memes, right?
Nope.
And bizarre, websites. We want to go to validated material. We also have, the good fortune of we're not morons, which is really helpful too, right? We have some common sense. It really does help, right? But right now also, not only July 5th, so we were talking, 76 years? Did I do that math correct? 76-year anniversary. Right, of the actual Roswell incident or the reporting of the Roswell incident, right? July 5th, more or less. Yep. I'm also in Washington, D.C. Yeah. So, right. So I'm in Washington, D.C. for July 4th, July 5th. So I'm here for 3 days. So it's just really interesting to me that not only are we talking about the anniversary, that period around Roswell, we're also talking about 5 years later, close to that time in D.C. And I'm in D.C. And, of course, we had the movie Independence Day. So I think all of it has sort of come right into focus, my friend. I tell you, it's aligned. It's aligned. Right.
And it seems like July, maybe people are just really bored in the summer and then they like see UFOs or think about, because the fact that we're going from a July to a July and we're recording in July and it's happening again, just going to say maybe a little summer stir craziness. So what I want to say now is, okay, so after Roswell, that was a non-issue, like, after the retraction, but we were still UFO crazy, flying saucer crazy in the United States. And basically there needed to be some form of response. And what we get is three separate investigations, panels, in very quick succession. So in 1948, we get the first one, Project Sign, but it's also called Project Saucer. Now, this one might be the closest that we get to what a UFO enthusiast would really want from saying the government actually investigated, because this one was trying to get to the bottom of what were people seeing in the sky. They were trying to actually investigate or figure out, were these physical objects in the sky? But it's very important to note, they never presumed that it was extraterrestrial. So even in this first iteration, the government, while trying to look into people's claims, were never on the, like, this might not be from our planet. Their whole conclusion, and they lasted for most of 1948 as an investigative body. When they released the paper, basically it said, their summary was, some UFOs appeared to represent actual aircraft, but there was not enough data to determine the origin. So, yeah.
So when was Project Mogul? Was this happening during that time, Matt?
So, yes,
Project Mogul, as far as the nuclear balloon?
That's very funny. It was 1947 to 1949, right at the time that people are seeing stuff in the sky. Yeah.
Absolutely. This is fantastic to know. Okay. So we have Project Saucer, which seems to be a baby of Project Mogul, but go ahead.
Right. And again, this is what you'd want the government or an investigative body to do, right? People are saying we're seeing things in the sky. This is to try and get to the bottom of that. And they come to the conclusion, yeah, you probably saw some stuff. but there's nothing to these sightings that we can test or investigate at this point.
And Matt, you would say that at this point we're going through sort of a technological boom time, right? You're talking 30 to 35 years before, people are still riding horses. I mean, you're talking 30 years later, we've had the nuclear bomb, we have Russia, we have Germany, right? We have vehicles that are, we're increasing in our technological innovations, right? And people might not be understanding exactly what they're saying. And it's not I'm not trying to criticize these individuals. It's that this is a time of tremendous change.
Yeah.
Tremendous change.
Yeah. So think about this. If you're in 1947 and you need to get across the country, so say you're in New York and you want to go to California, the primary way you're going to still do it is like the super chief train with like the Pullman cars and it's going to take you a few days. Like there are some, there are flights,
there's flights, but
there's not as many. But there are becoming more and more. So we're in the period where it's like the kind of heyday of like the railroads are starting to give under the pressure of the new like passenger airline becoming prominent. And as I said to Jen when we were talking the other day, like I even remember the couple days after 9/11, right? When all flights were grounded. And it was like, I think it was about 2 days, if I'm remembering. And then they let planes back in the air. And those 2 days were super eerie, but it was almost creepier when the plane started again because it was only gone for 2 days, but like that noise suddenly was deafening. And so if that can happen to someone who has grown up with with air traffic the way it is, imagine if it's a relatively new concept.
I exactly. I remember, you think about me, right? We're in a dark sky place. I got 50 acres out on the river. We actually sit on our back deck, Matt. We look up and I can see the satellites tracking, right? And, that's how clear it is, right? Now, can you imagine, never seeing an aircraft or maybe never seeing a specific type of aircraft and you're sitting in the woods or you're a hunter or it's early in the morning and all of a sudden you see just a click of a bright glow that comes across. So we don't know, are they near a fighter base? Right? Is it a weapon system that's being actually tested? Right. That's why I find this so fascinating. That's why I love the story of Roswell, right? And somebody over their skis, and then you have this sort of cascading effect, of people just saying or wanting things to be the way that they are. I would say at this point, there's the probable and the possible. It's possible there's some alien bodies there, but I would say it's not probable. Right. And now we fast forward, we had Project Mogul, which was the classified balloon project, which led into Project Saucer, right? Yep. And my guess is that's not the end of it.
No, that is not the end of it. Actually, we get to what I think is probably kind of the most interesting one. It's the project that's in the middle of the three. So it's Project Grudge, which love the name. Feel like they're throwing some shade. I don't know, but like it feels like, and
it does a little.
So, okay, again, keep in mind, a lot of UFO enthusiasts love to say, look how seriously the government was taking UFOs in the 1940s and 50s because they were doing these investigations. Okay, the mission statement of Project Grudge, and it was a short-lived one, but it was to alleviate public anxiety over UFOs. And secondary goal, to educate the public about what they are seeing in the sky. So that way, when they report, to basically tamp down the amount of reports that are coming in, because you're going to you're going to clog the response, like if you're overwhelmed with calls and you can't possibly scramble enough jets or anything to like react to every single one.
Well, I think you have resource issues, right? If you're talking military or law enforcement, you're talking emergency services. If you can't at least allow the general public to know that the lights they're seeing in the skies are probably not alien beings or flying saucers, that's very important. And I'm going to say this: Project Grudge, the mission statement, sounds perfectly rational, Matt. And I'm not going to take too long on this transition, but Project Grudge, and obviously we've read the reports too, Matt, you and me, but it sounds perfectly rational to alleviate the stress of the American public and to have an education program about what they might be seeing in the sky, especially with the technical innovations that were going on, the technological innovations that were going on at that time.
Yes. And so one of the interesting things, one of their tactics initially was to actually test to if they had a case that they could try and put resources into confirming or deny what this was. So they did find some photographic evidence, I guess, that was taken by someone, and they dumped every possible resource into it that they could in order to recreate it, debunk it, verify all of that stuff, right? This particular set of pictures that they were working on was from a place called Great Falls, Montana.
The fact is that they went through a rational sort of hypothetical, right? Where they're looking at how can we prove or disprove this hypothesis? What are we saying?
Yes.
What a scientific method do we need to utilize in order to either prove, debunk, or maybe identify what these objects are? And then how do we actually transfer that to the public in a way that's understandable? That's my, I'm trying to summarize it very quickly.
And that's exactly it, because the whole point that they wanted to, again, as I said, they wanted to alleviate panic and also help figure out ways to educate the public. So, the public could still, report sightings, but they hopefully will report less of the stuff that there's an easy explanation for. And one of the things that they realized is that was a gigantic waste of resources. And if they tried to do that at scale, meaning like any kind of similar sighting, they couldn't. I mean, basically, it was just impractical. And one of the things that they did then was they themselves, the Project Grudge, the members of it, requested that their scope and their resource be scaled down, because just the idea of their existence was almost feeding the anxiety of the public. Because it was now look, there's something here, right?
The road to hell is paved with good intentions, man. And, I think that's the first thing. The second thing, too, when you're talking about resource drain, I've been there, right? Where, you have the good intentions using this fact-based methodology. Then you see, you're like, oh, shit, this is a lot of work. Not only that, just the very essence of our being is actually feeding into this conspiratorial mindset, or this government behind the door mindset, right? Or today, the deep state globalist mindset.
Yes.
Right.
Well, exactly.
So it's that, and so no matter how well intentioned you are, there's going to be a group, and I say a significant number of individuals, and those could be grifters, true believers, the ignorant, right? Those who are looking for some kind of other type of satisfaction in their life. And I'm not saying that in a weird way. I'm saying, where they want to be special. Right? Yeah. Maybe a combination of all those. But again, they're looking, there's Project Grudge, which came from Project Saucer. There's actually a government agency that's looking into UFOs.
Right. And, I guess it's a very interesting thing to have this self-awareness as the members of Project Grudge did, that they weren't helping the situation. And I love that, because it feels like a moment where they knew that they were becoming the stars, right? They were becoming the thing that they needed to push back against, which was the anxiety. So again, I was talking about Great Falls, Montana, and I'm hearing. Oh, I think we've got. Hold on, Great Falls.
Is that?
Hey guys. I just got off the bus. It's amazing. It was so fast. Travel is amazing. But I feel like you guys have given me way too many resources, because I'm told that my jacket is causing so much anxiety. But there's nothing here. There's nothing. There's water. There's a bridge. There's a nice bridge. There is a grudge, but it's between the intersection of the IHOP and the Denny's. There's some tension.
A lot of fighting going on there.
Yeah, it's palpable. Yes.
Yeah, it's the pancake wars of Montana. Yeah.
No aliens.
Yeah, oh my God, it's the eggs over my hammy. Against the all-you-can-eat pancake special.
The only flying saucers.
My hammy.
The only flying saucers are the ones that the employees are flinging at each other in the war. Pancakes, just
you could see those things on TikTok. They get out of control. Shout out to Waffle House Sunday. Yeah.
So, well, is she right there?
No,
is she watching you right now?
No, she's in
Oh
a
my
other
God.
state, but I'm a fan.
I know you're a fan. No, I was going to say, so in Montana, this is the worst joke. I'm sorry, Matt, but and I'm sorry, Doug, because you've done.
Are you
all
about
that
to make
time
another
with
terrible
us.
joke? I'm not in the studio. I can't stop you.
I know it seems like in Montana they're all hat, no alien.
I'm gonna leave now. This is Doug recording. Out.
See you later, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. So not a damn thing in Montana.
Not a damn
That's
thing.
really
No.
weird.
No,
well, I mean
it's
that's
weird,
even
yeah.
people. Yeah, I love Montana. I lived in Idaho. I've been through Montana. Love Montana.
Okay,
nothing
Mr.
against that, but
Politician, you don't need to worry about offending the state.
I'm just letting you know that
right.
once I run for president, I want to make sure that everybody knows I love Montana. Just because I said no hat, no, all hat, no alien, doesn't mean anything except for the fact that I'm making fun of aliens and people who.
Yeah, that there's
no, not really, not doing that either. We're just trying to.
You are being super political now. You're like, oh no. Quick, find a baby to kiss and we can reset this. Okay.
An alien baby, my friend. An alien baby.
Hybrid?
So let's go. So
talking hybrid? What comes next is the one, it's the one everyone knows, Project Blue Book. Right?
Yes.
Like that's the one. And this is something I've got a question for you now that you've got your political hat on. Like, so to me, just the cursory read of Project Blue Book feels almost like what someone would call fan service. Like it almost feels like if Project Grudge had it right, how do we alleviate the anxiety? Project Blue Book kind of felt like the pressure on them by the believers was getting great enough that it was causing the officials to act out of character almost. Does that make sense? Like responding to public pressure,
that's what, politicians, when you talk about politics or you talk about, some of those things, a lot of times they only respond to fear, right? Fear and polling and fundraising, but also making sure that their base is satisfied or they're actually responding to something, incredible. They're actually trying to do something, even if it's something like aliens, which I don't think is quite as important as the debt or the deficit, probably not quite as important as healthcare, probably not as important as public safety or foreign policy.
You can kind of say,
right?
you can get rid of the qualifiers.
Funding.
Definitely not as important as healthcare. Definitely not as important as okay.
Right. And I was being a little bit funny there, as you know.
No, I know.
Trying to be. But I think too, the other thing that really is amazing about this is that Project Mogul, which was something where they're really trying to protect the American public. You have patriots, right? You have people that have, taken the oath trying to serve, really has 3 children. And those children, right? I think the grandchildren of Project Mogul are happening today, with the whistleblower Grush and things like that. I think we have grandchildren now, but I think the initial children, the oldest was Project Saucer, the middle child, which was the really creative and smart child, I think was Project Grudge. I think the third child, which just went crazy with no discipline, was Project Blue Book. And, and I think you have those 3, I think you have the 3 direct children of Project Mogul. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it, Matt. I'm trying to actually just put it into perspective for me as somebody who tries to think in a logical way. Like, what are the effects of false reporting? What are the effects of an individual who's confused? How do those effects actually bloom into government programs that are a waste of resources and time for the American public?
Right.
And by the way, listen, I actually want to give people a toolkit. I think what we did with the Mighty Peculiar, I know we're in the middle of the show here, is I don't want people to think we're not trying to make fun of anybody, to be honest. Nope. What we're trying to do is how do we give people the toolkit to sort of at least to look at sources, motivations, look at what data they can use to say, does this actually meet the sniff test, right? The sanity sniff test. And if we, it's not just this stupid thing of doing your own research or asking questions. The first thing is there a common sense meter that this has to meet in order for you to get to a point where you think it's worth your time or energy?
Right.
I don't think, listen, just because there's UAPs, when I said unidentified fabulist objects, UFOs, when we talk about unidentified aerial phenomenon, I'm not saying that there isn't any unidentified aerial phenomenon. I know, or unidentified flying objects, because when you look at technology, we don't know if something crashes. There are foreign components that we want to collect if it crashes anywhere in our areas of responsibilities for the United States. We want to collect those. So we have foreign parts, foreign tech that we do want to collect, right? But there could be weapon systems out there we're not aware of, because I can tell you, I've had my hands in the guts of an AMRAAM in autonomous and semi-autonomous weapons. I've been taught F-15s and F-16s and B-1s. I've been taught ambiguities in the radar systems or in their multifunctional displays, or how to go to single target track or raster scan. I'm pretty good at this. I did it for years. Yeah. And what I'm saying is the first thing I would go to if I saw something unidentified that's doing bizarre maneuvers, I don't think alien craft. I'm thinking, is there a weapon system we're not aware of? And it could be doing things that are impossible. Is there an ambiguity in the scope? Are we just seeing things? Is it some kind of reflection of the light? That would be my first. I would say that would be the first things I would look at, Matt. So that's, or as you're seeing right there.
Sorry, we just breaking news. Sorry, hold on.
Here we go.
We had the Anderson basement crash of 2023.
But again, I know I just went on one of my rants because I do that every now and then. But that's exactly,
you know what? No. So you did it perfectly because one, you set me up to say you tickled a missile, which I'm going to keep talking about.
Tickled the missile.
It's tickling the missile is what Denver has done in a professional capacity in the past. And that's what makes him an expert. But you've talked about radar, okay?
Yes.
So let's talk about 1952 in DC, okay? And it's called the flap, which again, I love because it's not one sighting. It's multiple. It's over from like July 12th to July 29th, but only on the weekends. We're not talking about consecutive. Like, we're not saying every day in there. It's just like the Friday and Saturday nights. So it's like July 12th.
Oh, interesting.
And then like July 7th, 19th, and then it culminated. And one more. So it sounds like, and this is what I want to say. If you hear the term like UFOs over Washington, D.C., you're thinking like, oh my God, like the sky is full, right? And like, it's crazy. No one ever.
That's not what it was it?
No. It was radar. All of it was radar indicated. So you want to say like, oh my God, it happened for this long. It's over the Capitol. So it's so important. There's people on the streets like looking up and gasping. No. It's always interesting that it was in the evening after a hot summer day gives way to night. Hot, humid summer day gives way to night. The sun goes away. What happens when like the sun isn't?
Never know. Could have radar anomalies.
And that's exactly what it was. So, and that's kind of putting the cart before the horse, but like, that's the craziest thing about this is it's almost more of a nothing. It actually, honestly, it's kind of more of a nothing than Roswell. Because at least in Roswell, something did fall. There was unidentified
There's a debris field
at the time.
Yeah. You had a debris field.
Yes.
Yeah, you had a debris field, right? You had something that was tangible that you could actually pack into a truck and move to Roswell from Corona. You're exactly right. So here's where this becomes infamous, because these are radar indicated by air traffic controllers. The first one that spotted it, I'm going to get through this, was a 30-year-old named Howard Coughlin. He's out.
Basically what happened was he did the thing where he's like looking at the radar, he's an air traffic controller, and then suddenly there's like a bunch of blips. Okay. And this causes enough of like a concern because, again, it is Washington, D.C. It's the count. So there's a response scrambled. There are like jets that go into the air. And guess what? There's not a damn thing. They can't find anything. Coincidentally, not coincidentally, because this is just the explanation, the weather was going through a little bit of a change, a little bit cooling down, and the radar basically picked up a change in the pressure and the moisture. And as someone who's had some radar experience, I mean, like, does that stand to reason? Like,
yeah, I mean, I never worked in 1952 radar, but the one thing we did learn, right, is that there are ambiguities, right? Sometimes there are ambiguities in radar pickups, right, where there's unidentified, and you have to sort of go through those ambiguities. I'm not going to go through all the science to it because there is actually, I was taught a lot, right?
Yeah.
And if anybody out there knows the term L knots, they'd be like, "Oh my God, Denver," or C knots, right? Things like that. But I think when you're looking at ambiguities and you're looking at radar pickups, right? We had to go through a lot of training on what we were looking at and what it might mean. And I think after the fact, if I remember the 1952, some of the reading, and I always do enjoy, Matt, that you surprise me with some things, right? You always try to do that.
I try to.
But looking at the reading, and you do it. Looking at 1952, looking at the reading, it's amazing to me when you're looking at 1947. I thought 1947 and 52, one actually really caused the other. We look at 1952, we also had people there on the weekends who were there just to see it, right? Once they start reporting on it, people want to go out there to see it. And now you have a hysteria or a story, or you have the media again putting something out there that's really unconfirmed. And when I go back to 47 and 52, it's sort of a combination of things, isn't it? It's Howie, right? Looking at some blips that could be ambiguous. It doesn't, probably not UFOs. I would say 100% not alien-driven craft.
Right.
How about
and
that?
30 years old, which, again, he's got experience, but we're talking about a younger guy, air traffic control, is
youngish guy.
Yeah.
Probably a training event. Right now he could be trained. My guess is after, seeing those things, it was probably, he's like, you know what? Thank you. And they probably went back and they probably trained. Right. The one just actually have a crash.
Number 2. Whee! So, yeah.
See how
I'm not even going to have to take down the set dressing. It's cleaning itself.
It's just cleaning. Well, that's how UFOs crash, right? They're string breaks. But, and I think, right?
Grass is fatal.
It's string theory. Anyway, so I think really the problem that we have here is that you have the same, almost, you're exactly right, Matt. You said it was more of a nothing burger than 47. I absolutely agree with you, because you're talking about radar ambiguities, right, that caused a hysteria. Nothing was there. Most probably nothing was there. Again, it's always possible. Maybe a meteor is going to hit my hotel tomorrow. But right now it's not probable that that's going to happen. And I think that's what people need to look at. What is possible and what is probable. Right.
Exactly. And again, there are the different explanations of, in some cases, we're going to get different balloon type, things, all that sound like the cliche, but they're a cliche because this is the stuff that people were using. And in fact, it wasn't that long ago that our entire country recently was fixated on the fact that a balloon was in the air, right? Wasn't that long ago.
Not that long ago. Nope.
And now think about this. We got good visual on that balloon beyond and word could spread quickly, but take that exact same circumstance, the Chinese spy balloon circumstance, put it in 1952 where camera equipment, all of that stuff is not as advanced and word spreads slower. And that story can get easily contorted into, UFO, all of this stuff. And you got a situation where, if there are, objects in the sky, even incidentally or whatever in DC, that's going to trigger a response, right? The military will respond because it's the capital, right?
Well, it's conspiracy telephone.
Right.
That's it. It's conspiracy telephone. And so now we've gone from Corona to Roswell, which is pretty interesting. We've gone to Montana.
We've done that. But and for our purposes about for this, because again, there was numerous events during this July, during this month of July. It was what we need to kind of highlight here is this is a case where the press was a little out of control, because in Roswell, the newspaper, I don't know, you can't really fault them for running with it. And that what they ran with came from the Army spokesman, right?
Yeah, it did. And, I talked about it. Go ahead.
Oh, what I was going to say is now in over the DC, we're almost getting back into Mad Gasser of Mattoon. People still are correcting me because I kept saying Mattoon, but where there was pretty much, I felt intentionally reckless press that was they did the thing where it's such and so were first victims, right? And then that feeds an anxiety. Well, the press at the time in 1952 was just very Hollywood-like headlines. One of our favorites is something called Whatzits over Washington. Saucers invade Capitol. These are the headlines. Now, most of it is all about things that were radar indicated that stuff was not in the sky. But
That's
yet
right.
you still got flying saucers invade
What's
Capitol.
over Washington, flying saucers. That's what I'm saying. Absolutely hyperbolic. And it's almost, as we go from place to place, it's almost like you need a reporter on the ground as we go to 75, 76 years. It's almost like we need a reporter on the ground to report what's happening in Washington now, right? Is there anything happening now, right, that could be something we could look at that's honest and facts-based and, really facts-based insights?
Well, I don't want to be alarmist because I'm sitting here in my reigning flying saucer safety, but you might look behind you. Denver, look out your window.
Oh my gosh!
Oh my God! Oh my God! We're under attack! People are being disintegrated.
It's right here.
There are people. They're walking and pooping while they're walking. They're pooping.
Oh my God!
The aliens are going to kill us all. They have curious fingers and they're green. You must help me. My salvation depends on your every word.
Okay, do you need me to come to Washington, D.C.? Like, do I need to go?
Do you need us right now? Because I'm here. Do you need me to come outside right now? Are those green lights actually is that the storm that's coming? Or are those actually, no,
there's nothing here.
No.
There's nothing here.
Oh, well, you were suggesting there was, and as the press, I was going to run out of the hotel room.
Like most of the press, of the American press, I was being hysterical. Yeah.
You got bored.
Yeah,
and you just decided,
Newsday, which we now have learned will be the death of us all.
Yeah. Okay. So
thank you.
How is DC? Calm. You said so we're good.
Yeah, it's fine. I put some green lights there to raise some blood pressure a little bit. I mean, we need ratings, man.
Yeah.
We need ratings.
Yeah, and I want to sell some merchandise as well. So.
I used to work in that building, Doug, and the fact that you would put them right there is really fantastic. You're
welcome.
But the issue is that a Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert might see this and might believe it, and I'm a little bit worried about this, Doug. So I think that we have to be
the way to go viral.
That's the way right there. That's
how we call
the way to go viral.
Yeah.
But you did call them over.
I'm going to get my chair now.
Please get in your chair. And thank you for that reporting, because I think we've gone all the way from Roswell to Washington, D.C., and I don't think we've seen a damn thing from what I can from our reporter on the ground. No. And, Doug, I tell you, the great thing about what we just did here, right, and I'm not trying to preach to the people, but the issue, what we've been talking about with the press, with hysteria, with sourcing, with motivations, with actually looking at things that actually make sense, I find it amazing that we were able to end up where hysteria, right, and actually using language, right, to get people riled up is how you get clicks nowadays. And I think even now with social media, I think even now with alternate media, when you're looking at the new self-righteous whistleblower, which seems like every UFO whistleblower since 1947 has been some self-righteous, UFO.
Oh, and this new guy is insufferable. The new guy from that.
It's insufferable. No,
yeah, this guy.
It's unbelievable. Grush.
Yeah. He's like,
and I'm not trying to
third-hand hearsay, just this vapid mess of a person.
It's a mess.
I have had my hands on more evidence of things that are in the air than he has.
Well, you know what, guys?
Go
ahead, Denver. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I know we didn't want to go into it too much. When we're looking at 2023, when we talk about the children of Project Mogul, right, which was Saucer Signal, Grudge, and then Blue Book, we now have the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Project Mogul. 1947 was really the liftoff, no pun intended, of the UFOs and UFPs that are in the air and that we're talking about today. And when you're looking at the reporting from The Intercept, some of these reporters, what you're seeing is that they want those clicks. And there really is no baseline validated data to prove anything that the whistleblower said. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't believe what he's saying. I'm not saying that he's a bad human being. I try to give the benefit to the doubt of anybody in the Air Force or anybody in the military that's an officer, but hear me out here. We have crazy people now like the Mike Flynn's, the Thomas McInerney's, the Phil Waldrons for January 6th. We have people out there that were military that you would think because they're decorated, they were intelligence, that they would have some common sense or they would care about the American public. They don't. So now, even though there's a military officer who works for the National Geospatial Agency, National Geospatial NGA, which I know a lot about, and NRO, the National Reconnaissance Organization, I think what's amazing to me is that what we're looking at is somebody who maybe believes, but as somebody who says they're an intelligence officer, they didn't validate. And I think that's the thing that frustrates me, is that we're causing a hysteria and wasting government resources and time while we're pushing this forward. This is going to be a nothing burger, just like every other UFO whistleblower that's ever existed.
Right.
Yes.
And that's
you're getting
what
a
I
lot
wanted
of
to point out.
clicks. They're getting a lot of clicks.
A lot of clicks.
A lot of Google.
A lot of clicks.
Let me jump in and wrap something up with what you just said, Denver, because we've kind of referred to it a couple times here, but the CIA, the notorious, evil, amazing, whatever, Rorschach test of an agency, and in terms of your opinion of it, did do a very thorough and publicly available, declassified on their website, report about UFOs. And I've read it now twice, which says something about me, I guess, but it's amazingly readable. And something to it's in I'll call it, it's the Durant report, Durant. Yep. It's the last name of the writer. And what they basically crystallized that I think is still completely applicable is, again, this was not the CIA investigating whether extraterrestrials were coming to Earth, right? This was the CIA investigating the potential for psychological warfare on the American public by the reports, they use psychological warfare as either intentional, like say maybe like election interference, disinformation, right? But about that, or the concern about overloading the defense systems, which would be, again, as I kind of tried to put it, like it would be like if the building was on fire and you call, but simultaneously like everyone else is calling and saying, I think I've seen a fire elsewhere. And it's like, there's one fire that is legit and needs to be dealt with. But if you are scattering your resources, chasing down phantom fires, it's the same as UFOs, right? Like they want to make sure that the actual threat is dealt with, like that they can identify if it's a real threat and they can deal with it, not chase down just random reports. And that's what the CIA
Everybody should read the Durant report. Yeah. Everybody should read the Durant report. Every single person who has an issue with UFOs or UAP should read the report. I think it's brilliantly done. I think it was very intelligently done, right? And I think when you're talking about resource strain across all of emergency services, law enforcement, right, even the military, right, and all the things that they have to actually investigate, I think allowing people or training people or teaching people what they're seeing, right, is explainable. And then not everything is a threat, especially when you're talking about, what was the Durant report, 1956, 1957? Is that correct? Right around in there, Matt?
Actually, that one came in I want to say it was in the early 60s. No, it was 57.
Early 60s.
57, that's right. No, it was 57. You were right, yeah.
57. So when you're talking 1957, when you're talking about projectiles, you're talking about technology, we now have had a 10-year from 47 to 57. Yes. The Children of Mogul, right, all the way through Blue Book. Now you have the Durant report saying, listen, we are having problems here. American people actually believe that there could be some kind of alien craft or other craft in our atmosphere. And we need to make sure we educate them on what's happening. Right. We need to have an education program. I think that's brilliant. And I think that is actually applicable today. I think we need an education program from school on up on critical thinking, on sourcing. And I know there's going to be UFO, UAP believers that say, Denver, you're trying to drag us through the woods. I'm not. No. I'm just saying there's a probable and possible here. It's possible that Grush is correct. There is a small, slight possibility that there's alien body parts and alien maintenance parts. I can't even say it with a straight face, right? That are being hid somewhere in a bin in Tonopah test range. Who frickin' knows? But I would say it's not probable. And when you're reading people who have no validated data to back things up, there's no forensically trackable data. I would humbly submit that you have to look at this as either somebody who's mistaken, somebody who's trying to make money off it, somebody who's a true believer, right? Is going to believe it no matter what, right? Or somebody who has some issues that need to be addressed with a psychiatrist. I mean, that's really where we're at now. If he's right, I'll eat crow. If they drag and do an alien autopsy right here in the public square, right here in Washington, D.C., I'll eat crow and say, you know what? Every UFO, UAP person was correct. I was wrong. This is the first time I've been wrong about UFOs and UAPs. And, by God, I hope there's not a freaking Bigfoot, because I'm really screwed, because then, it really goes out the door for me then, right? So that's the issue that I have right now, is for the love of God, I would hope that the media becomes more responsible, some of them, and you see some of the big media are staying away from Grush. But for the love of God, people, if you're reading this stuff and it sounds too good to be true, or it sounds like it's aligning directly with your fantasy or aligning directly with your belief system, check it out again, because it's probably almost impossible to get there at 100%. Yes, sir, Doug. You don't have to ever raise your hand. Cut right in on me.
The professor, the most irresponsible thing of that entire story is that the ABC News, on a slow news day, mirrored a story that was picked up in a very pro-alien blog. It's a glorified blog. Is what it is.
Yep.
And we can get into the staff of that blog. I can get into the staff who wrote the piece. That's its own bias mess. But also, we're talking about a report, like, you're being way more than fair by saying, like, well, if he's right, he could. No, like, the guy, it's a complete fabrication. It's hearsay on top of hearsay. Not once does he say he saw anything himself. Not once does he has no photos, no documentation, or no names, frankly. He has no sources. So this story is malarkey for the clicks, people. That's what it is. And unfortunately, it's being validated by some of our politicians. We know who, but it's being validated with their theater.
By the way, Doug, I know them. I have their phone numbers. I know, and that's the thing, is I know this could piss off people, right? That's in Congress, things like. And by the way, they're coming for me right now, as you can hear. But I think,
Brand Express coming at you right now.
It's coming at me. But I think, I am trying to be kind. I am trying to be fair, because we're so far. And all the phenomena I've looked at, the multiple Bigfoot expeditions, look at Bigfoot believers, all the stuff that I did overseas, all the reports that I've had to take, all of the actual technical reports I've had to done and report. Guys, when I did mission planning for pilots, I had to be ones and zeros. I couldn't be fantastical. I had to have facts-based insights based on validated data, right? And if I was 10% missing, I had to use all of my sourcing and experience to try to make sure I fill in that 10% to keep people out of harm's way. That is facts-based insights. That is using validated data, right, to test a hypothesis or theory, or to look at your battle space or your battlefield, or to look at your environment to say, this is what's happening in my environment, because it's using validated data. Right now, UFO, UAP individuals, what we're seeing in reporting, and Doug, you said it much more eloquently, it's better. But for me as a data guy, there's just not the validated data for me to say that can be real. And I do get angry. And the fact is that Doug and Matt, you guys are seem more angry than me, because I was told by my wife before then, when I was spewing about this in the vehicle, right, that Den, don't piss people off. Give them a toolkit. You've always said in your life, give somebody a toolkit to say, hey, you guys can get through this, because I've been trained. It just didn't come to me naturally. I've had years of military intelligence training, government intelligence training. I was a CEO of a tech company. We had to deal in facts and reality. Right. And if I can get people there with me and the training that I've had, and I'm not being cocky or arrogant, it's just I've been fortunate enough to have 20 to 25 years of training on facts-based insights using validated data. Maybe this show, The Mighty Peculiar, with us, maybe we can give people a little bit of that toolkit to at least question what they're seeing from sources that can't be validated or data that can't be validated. So, Doug, you said it much better. Matt, you said it better. I know I'm going in techno speak, but validate your data, folks, and make sure that just because somebody's going for clicks on a slow news day, as Doug talked about, don't automatically think that's something don't get caught up in that. Don't get rolled.
Don't get duped and don't get rolled. I got to get to your mail, so we're going to cue that Bjork gif right about now. Okay.
Wonderful.
All right, there's this one. Okay. So this question is for both of you. Do you believe that the the UFO office Gillibrand, all right, we are, secured funding for. Do you believe, I guess that's the AARO, is that right? That office?
Yeah, it's the
She collaborated with that with Rubio, right?
Yep. Yes, it's the.
I just want to clarify.
I had it up, and I think no pun intended, and then I just lost the darn thing.
Okay, you want to get into puns? Ready? I'm
Ready?
going to go for a Matt Anderson one right here. Ready?
Okay.
What do you say? Tickle the missile. Tickle the missile.
Tickle the missile.
Specs work is work, buddy.
God.
You're welcome.
That's why people listen to this show. It's just because of this right here.
Yep.
So what you're talking about here, and I'm going to say
thunder punning right there.
Thunder, Jesus. What are we doing here? So you're talking about the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office.
Right. So
you're talking about
Gillibrand and Marco Rubio
AARO
funding for this, right? And so,
right.
And I guess it's their job to,
I believe,
further investigate more UFOs.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a military or anything.
Or Space Force.
Right.
Right. Or Space Force. So I guess the question is, do you believe the office that Gillibrand secured funding for might just be an empty cafeteria with an ATM machine in it?
By the way, that's all of the because
you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say that. Matt and I can say that, but you shouldn't say that. That might have to get cut.
A joke.
Right.
That might have to get cut. Okay. So, but what I'm saying is there are some offices, every office is funded, right? So an office actually has its own budget. So Doug, when you talk about the ATM machine, and I know it's a joke and it's funny, but when you talk about the ATM machine, there is a funding line attached to that office that could be considerable. You think one congressional office per year has about $1.4 to $1.5 million to use. So if you're looking at, that's just the House. So if you're looking at 435 offices, I think people can do the math. When you're looking at the Senate has a larger budget because they have a larger staff. Right. Every committee also has its own funding line. So I guess I am doing some educating now. So when you're looking at the AARO, or you're looking at a committee that's actually investigating this, there's a cost associated with that. And that cost goes directly to the taxpayers. So my beef with somebody who is center right on the fiscal side, my beef is, are we really using monies appropriately when we have so many other issues? And I know Matt and I talked about this. Are we using monies appropriately, looking at the AARO and looking at anomaly detection, right? Or what we're looking at when we don't have any validated data to start with. So that is my issue. And I would humbly submit that there should not be hearings. I think it's a waste of the taxpayers' money at this point.
Okay.
So I will just tag on one thing there because now this is just
because this was going to be all for the after show, but we're here.
Oh,
we're here.
Okay. Well, might as well. Let's just go for it. So I've in thinking of just terms of pure political strategy. Like there's a part of me, and I will caveat for Doug's paranoia that like, this is just me blue skying an idea. This isn't anything that I've read or whatever. Right. But I do find that like it could be an interesting move because for someone like Gillibrand, who this could be a look, let's just kind of put a good face on this. Like we're going to take these things seriously enough that like we're on it. And then you got someone like Rubio, who right now, because of the state of the current Republican Party, this actually is good for him. Like this might help his base. Like a guy that had been a serious guy, or at least that's what I always heard he was. Like the MAGA and just Republican base right now is so much more friendly to this kind of thought, like the UFOs, that like this might not be a politically like dumb thing for him to do.
Let me humbly submit something. I think when you're looking at the far right or MAGA, even on the far left, I think there is a fringe belief. I think it is maybe predominantly on the far right at this point, but I don't think. I think UFOs have been so memed in society. I don't think that it's really hard to identify who that believer might not be. I mean, I've had examples where there's an individual, like there's no way this person believed that there's alien driven craft. And like, well, there's absolutely alien driven craft. I seem not to be able, even, with the 9/11 truthers, Bigfoot believer types, false moon landings, right? They don't believe in any of that, but I'll be goddamned if they don't believe in a frickin' UFO driven craft or an alien driven craft, AFOs, right? Alien flying objects. You know, if we want to call them AFOs, they don't believe in UFOs. Matt, you said something. We got to bring the identified back to the U, right? In UFO and UAP.
Yes, right.
Because that was your quote, and I think it's brilliant because they're not AFOs. They're not alien, flying objects. When you're talking about bases or you're talking about this, here's my wonder. And Doug and Matt, you are blue skying this, but I'm going to tell you, I wonder what polling looks like. I wonder if there's actually some kind of crosstab in a poll where it says specific districts are very interested in UAP, UFO activities. Right. If that's the case, you're talking to your base. And so that's the thing that I'm really interested in.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but wouldn't just sowing the distrust in government be playing to that specific base because that's their brand, especially in the time of this culture war minstrel nonsense?
Damn it, Doug! I did. I was trying to dance around this. Right?
Matt and I don't have to.
No, I don't have to.
I don't have to.
Yeah. Right. So here's the issue.
Go ahead.
No,
and then I'll throw something.
Here's the issue. The distrust of government, that fascinating conspiratorial deep state globalist thing, which I did mention halfway through, and then I sort of went off of it. There is a deep state globalist government cover-up mentality that this speaks to. And I'm telling you right now, this is no different than the Save Our Children, hashtag Save Our Children from QAnon or Stop the Steal and things of that nature. We are now in where anything you can get to that says that government is hiding, the deep state is hiding something is a tick. It's a hit. It's a hot flash. It's a sear. It's something that gets people. It doesn't matter if it's real. It doesn't matter if it's consistent. They're hitting you in the amygdala, right? With something that immediately gives you an emotional connection. And if it seemingly goes down your belief system line, you could believe that the government is absolutely hiding alien body parts, or the Smithsonian is hiding Bigfoot body parts in the basement. A real thing.
I knew it.
Not a real thing. I'm talking about a real belief
Totally knew it.
So, right? So those are some of the things that we're fighting. So, Doug, yes, the thing is, it goes back to the distrust of the government. That's why I was talking about that a little bit at the beginning. I usually don't go there bluntly, but it is amazing to me how many people sort of just grab onto the UFO mentality without really any proof. And listen, people say, look, so many people have seen things. Well, so many people have seen chupa-fucking-cabras too. So many people have seen Bigfoot. So many people have seen the Loch Ness Monster, right?
Yeah. So many people have seen the band Creed.
Yeah.
So I did actually. Nickelback opened for him.
That's getting cut.
That hit
I'm not gonna be in the same frame with that.
You just caused pain to all of Doug's music, snobby.
I saw Creed Nickelback opening. Willie Nelson, I think, was part of that too. So
hey, Doug.
No, guys.
Doug, can I just throw a little flashback to something that we've done before? I saw Creed open for Van Halen with Gary Cherone as the singer.
Oh my God! Well,
we killed him. We killed him.
We almost took out the green screen. I know that we've had a long show, and I know that we were doing after, but
I got to get two. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I got two from your Twitter.
No, I'm ready for the next question. I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So I got two from your Twitter. Let's see. If we have what we believe is a sighting, who should we contact? Ooh. That one comes from Throw.
Oh, that's a great question. Who should we contact if you have a sighting?
If you have a sighting, yeah.
I'll jump in really quick and say, I know who the people do contact is just people that believe in UFOs. It's right. Which then to me says I don't even know if the people that are doing the sighting are taking it super seriously, because if you legitimately think what you're seeing is from, another planet, I feel like you wouldn't be calling the person that you met at the MUFON meeting, you would be I need to get this to someone. So
I think there's gradations here. If there's a hot searing thing that hits your backyard and causes some sort of explosion, I would call emergency services. If you're right, if it's just a streak of light, and you think you're threatened by it, I think most people are going to call emergency services. And Doug, that's a great question, because didn't we just have that Las Vegas law enforcement
Yes.
call when they saw something big in the backyard, right, with lights. So I do think if you think you see some kind of unidentified flying object, you think it's a threat, you would call local law enforcement, because I don't think you're picking up the Air Force or the AARO or calling your congressman.
Give me the president.
Right? Give me the president. I see a light. So if it's something that's directly threatening or causing physical damage, emergency services, other than that, I think you should call another UFO person, catalog it, take pictures of it, do all that great stuff that you want to do if you see lights in the sky. And then call your friend, and you guys can have some fun, drink some wine, and maybe talk about some alien abductions.
Yeah, if you get any videos of us, tag us in it. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, tag us.
You could contact us. Don't call me, but like you can just reach out.
Just
Actually, email us, send us the video, and we will talk about it just like we did in a very sane and rational way.
Well, really, what Matt said something. Matt and I were talking yesterday. He said something really interesting that was really cool. Is like, we kind of like suspect, of course, there's going to be life somewhere else besides Earth, right? Like we have amazing species here. We have octopi. We have cool stuff on Earth, right? Not humans, but the rest of the population is pretty cool.
We're overrated.
But the point of that is like, doesn't it feel better knowing, instead of being like, you're debunking us or calling us conspiracy theorists, isn't it better to know that the theory that what happened isn't as lame as you think it is?
Yeah.
Like there are more possibilities out there.
Right.
It's not as lame as a crap. And also, like, why do the aliens you believe in, why can't they drive? Like they're always crashing. You know what I mean? Like, so
or
feel better about that.
There's actually a question that's real for me. I don't know how you could have a real question out of this, Doug, so I apologize, Matt and Doug. But why aren't superior alien civilizations coming to actually reclaim their lost pilots? Do they not? Why aren't they coming to get their goods, right? If it's really, and by the way, since they actually helped build the pyramids, are you telling me their technology has stopped since the pyramids? They've actually gotten worse. There's actually more crashes. And also, are we telling people that there's mountains of satellite data, top-down looking satellites, right, that aren't seeing these, aren't being reported based on satellite data? There's just so many issues. Doug, I know we're sort of kidding, but the question's actually pretty good, is if they're actually bending space and time, why is Earth's atmosphere so dangerous?
Right.
And I think,
why is the soft cornfield the thing that destroys the thing that made it through an asteroid belt?
Destroys an asteroid belt. And by the way, why do they always crash at rural areas? I mean, right? Because wouldn't they actually be overpopulations doing a study? Maybe they are just sucking up cows and disemboweling them and dropping them. Maybe it's steak night on the Zeta Reticulan ship time or whatever. But I think that's the issue that we have.
Zeta Reticulan sizzler.
Well, a more important question might be, why did Neil Diamond write a song about the movie E.T.? Nobody asked him to do it. It's not on the soundtrack. It's not even on the soundtrack. In fact, he paid Spielberg to be able to release it. That's a true story. And that should bother you at home.
It does.
Watching this. Like it bothers.
Was that turn on your heart light?
Yeah. Nobody asked. Denver, no one asked.
I did not know that.
It's not in the film. And it's not in the credits of the film, and you might have a collective memory that it is.
It's a Mandela effect, Doug, and I just figured this out.
Yes.
People remember it being part of the movie, and it came after the movie.
Now, that's a phenomenon we need to get to the bottom of. Nobody asked you to write that goddamn song, and you did it anyway. And that's the
kind of stuff. Is he still alive? Can we get him on the phone?
That's the kind of stuff we're going to get to the bottom of on The Mighty Peculiar. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Here comes the mothership. Oh! Gonna get my sock jaw, gonna get my laser gun. Running scared for a damn good reason. A little green man with curious fingers. Why? Because the Whatzits over Washington return to probe our bodies again. Invaders from outer space might as well disintegrate the